We will today, as you all probably know, we're holding our grad school panel to ask questions about applying to grad school, since that's happening for some people over the winter and for the rest of us in future years maybe. So our treasurer, Maziar, will be moderating the discussion. And so without further ado, let's start.
All right, thank you. So let's get started with our panelists introducing themselves. Start with
My name is Butler. I was an MEP undergraduate here in this department, and now I'm a first-year PhD student in the electrical engineering department, and I do research in like machine learning stuff.
So I'm Marc, McLean. I'm a professor here, geometry, I suppose. And I'm associate graduate director, so I know a little bit about graduate. I've never applied to an American graduate school, so I don't have that experience, but I've seen it from the other side. So I've seen a lot of applications to Stony Brook.
So I'm Lisa Marquand. I'm a third-year PhD student here. I'm studying algebraic geometry.
I'm Moshe Dinowitz. I'm a first-year PhD student at the CUNY Graduate Center. So I'm interested in model theory on geometry.
Hi, I'm Hindy Drillick, and I hope some people remember me. I was an undergrad here, and I'm a first-year PhD student at Columbia. I'm interested in analysis.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask the first question, but it's going to be open to everyone to ask questions, so feel free to ask your questions. My first question is...
We'll also do remain other questions like at the end.
Sure.
Unless I guess if people.
No, they
You're
can ask their
moderator.
questions. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to start with asking what goes into a grad school application. Like, what do you need to have? What do you need to prepare in terms of requirements, and maybe what you need to do as an undergrad. So, you start, please. Anyone want to answer?
Maybe it's best to start with someone who did it most recently.
Okay, so to apply, you need to have a personal statement. I guess that's one of the big things, and you need to have letters of recommendation. So definitely the letters of recommendation you'd want to start thinking about before, because you need to get to know professors to get letters from. And the statement requirement depends on the school. So definitely you want to look at all the programs you're thinking of applying to before and see what kind of statement they have. Usually they're pretty standard, but some schools have more than one. You can write one that's more biographical, and then one that's more about your research you're interested in.
So write that, and also there's the MGRE.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay, so we had everyone, so
Yeah.
you remember.
So that's something you have to care about. And it's offered, I think, 3 times a year, but it's only offered twice during the fall semester. And the times it's offered, I think, aren't so great. Right? Yeah, so you should think about that, I guess, like probably in the summer before you apply, or even before that. So
Yeah, as soon as possible, you should look it up.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of applying.
Also, because then you could take it more than once.
Yeah.
So you do that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you would think the MGRE would be very easy because you know all this math, but in reality it's just you got to rely on lots of calc questions, right? So that's the majority of it. So that's not very fun, but yeah, it's something you have to do in order to. It's part of the process.
And see the regular.
Yeah, also the regular theory is kind of an afterthought, honestly. Like you have to take it, but it's not so important.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else I needed. I don't know if anyone's interested in applying to European universities, but sometimes you need extra. You need maybe a research statement sometimes. I have those. More in-depth on research or anything, any projects you did. So I had done a couple of projects in my undergrad, just reading projects, and they wanted a list of more specifics.
And so to get a application community perspective, what do you look for in an application?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I could just say for what's done here. So first of all, things like GRE scores, there's a sort of, we just look for scores which are sort of good enough, and that's a sort of threshold that it's a hoop you just have to jump through, and you know, it doesn't matter if it's above that threshold really. It's sort of, and then I suppose the next thing you do is look at I look at things like the transcript grades, you know, especially the later scores. So I do know there's some very good applications I've seen which say they did pretty badly in things like maybe calculus initially, but then they sort of improved and did really well in the advanced courses. Now you just ignore the earlier grades. So if you do really good A in some decent advanced courses, that's more important. And then, yes, definitely the letters of recommendation are very important. It is, in my opinion, it's very important to know a few professors so that they are familiar with your work, and so they could write a good letter of recommendation. Yeah, the other thing that I look for is projects. If you've done sort of decent undergraduate research projects, that helps a lot. You know.
And what about like personal statements? So,
Yeah. So
do you read them?
I read the personal statements, but yeah, if there's anything else that you've sort of achieved, I sort of try and find that in the personal statement. Sometimes it's good to, you know, sometimes people like mention the projects they've done in their personal statement, and maybe some more details on the projects rather than just the title, which will be on the CV or something, and that can sometimes help. Yeah, and any other sort of useful information, which, I mean, I'm sort of looking for information which is, you know, how well, like, I want information such as, you know, a PhD is like, you know, at Stony Brook it's at least 5 years. You know, quite often people take 6 years. It's a long-term thing. And, you know, you have these exams, you do comps exams, and then you do the oral exam, and then once you've done the oral exam, in my opinion, that stage of your PhD sort of is the sort of hardest part of your PhD, because it's, you have a problem, it's probably impossible or wrong, and you have to sort of try and solve it, and you know, eventually what happens is, well, you find out it's impossible or wrong and you have to change it. But you have the point is, it's a sort of long-term thing, and you have an unknown. It's completely unknown what's going to happen, and you need some sort of perseverance. You need to sort of enjoy what you're doing. You have to sort of really persevere, and and that's a difference between, say, getting A in an exam where the questions, you know they're right, you know the answer's going to be sort of this long, and that's it. So it's a sort of, I try to look for students who, you know, who have, you know, they do well in the exam, so they're good at the sort of technical things, but they also have this, you know, from these projects, you can sort of start seeing if they're good at doing a sort of longer term, sort of hard project. Yeah, so that's the sort of things I try and glean from the application.
Thank you. And how was your grade? So you applied to electrical engineering?
Yeah, so we're talking about application components.
Yes.
Am I allowed to say an affiliate? Because it's not a part of the application, but it's kind of an important part of why you're applying. So it kind of goes into the personal statement a bit. But if you like reach out to a professor ahead of time and you have a sense of like the work you want to do and who you want to work with, that helps with the admission process significantly. Especially if you're going for something like a PhD where you want to be there for a while, it's good to have a sense of like why, and usually that boils down to the person, because having a good advisor can really make or break your project.
And,
Could I just add to that? Like, I definitely did that. Like, in my undergrad, I had a faculty member who was like really on my side and pretty much emailed all the schools I applied to. Like, he knew he would like find someone he had some link to and like emailed them and was like,
look out for this application, she's really good. And I have a feeling this helped. I don't know if I can't say for certain whether it helped, but
I see.
I think that's definitely not harmful.
Right. And so like how would you approach a professor that you're interested? So like, well, so for you, in your case, your professor did that for you, but
Yeah, I did as well.
Oh, you
Like
did as well.
we did it from both sides. It's kind of like a double attack. Him being like, look out for our application, me being like, I'm about to apply.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So like how would you do that? Like
How would I do, like,
so like no, I was actually asking Kurt because you said you didn't do that, or did, like maybe you did. So the question is, how would you approach a professor? You or Kurt, either of you.
Well,
I think my angle is kind of.
if you have like a referral from your professor, so you're talking to somebody who co-authored with somebody you work with at Stony Brook, and they're like your connection there, you could always talk to the person who's like referring you first. Maybe they can introduce you, or they can tell you how to approach that person. Of course, that's not always the case. Sometimes you want to email somebody kind of like in cold blood.
What?
Word choice. But in that case, it's probably better to be more formal than not, especially if you're applying like internationally, where you don't have a sense of like what the campus culture might be. You just want to be formal, presentable, and show that you're interested in what they're doing. So if you like comment on like why you want to work with them.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, people like talking about their research. So if you just email departments being like, oh, I'm thinking of applying here, I'm interested in this, could you tell me a little bit about that research? Generally, most people will reply with quite a good, in-depth email, and then you can,
So you show interest in their research.
right, and then you can do your Google search and figure out these terms and be like, oh, this actually is cool, and then respond. So I definitely did that a bunch when I was applying.
I see.
Also gives you a better idea, like, as to what's going on at the university, if you actually want to go work there.
So I want to ask a question about the cost of graduate school. So what are some pointers and tips about getting into good graduate programs and supporting yourself through graduate school in general?
So yeah, so I think the question is that like, so I think for PhD programs, you won't have to pay. Like it's they right.
Well, in most US ones,
I see.
yeah. All the universities that I applied for and looked at in the US had guaranteed funding. If you want to look outside the US, it's not so quick.
Does that answer your question? What's your question?
About like recommendation letters. So, if you have a professor who's going to write a recommendation letter, do you kind of write a recommendation letter around when you're going to be applying? Or is it just like, after you've taken a class with them so they know who you are, you get them to write a recommendation letter and you just like put it in a freezer? Is that how it works? I'm not sure.
I don't want to
Yeah, I
answer
think
any
so.
questions.
Oh,
Well, they have to submit it online, right? So they can't, usually they can't, they're not giving you the letters, so I guess you, I don't know, I can say what I did. I applied to a bunch of things because I applied to a research program in my December of my junior year, and then I applied for some fellowships, like the NSF fellowship in the fall. So like, I was always asking kind of the same people for letters. So I guess I maintained a relationship with them through the last few semesters. But the actual letter that they were giving for graduate school, they're going to get an email from the program when you actually submit your application. So they're not going to be able to necessarily write it before, because I think some schools ask for specific, the professor to fill out some form online. But definitely, if you're thinking of someone writing a letter, you might want to tell them before that you're interested.
Oh, so to add, so I think I wouldn't like ask someone that I took Girls Age Calc 3 years ago. I wouldn't ask someone like that for a letter. I would ask someone that I knew more recently, or actually knew me and knew me personally. Right. So either I'd done a lot with them and they knew me personally, or it was more recent. Yeah. So I wouldn't. Yeah. Like I wouldn't trust like someone's opinion from 2 years ago. Really.
Yeah.
Reflects anything.
That's another question. Like when you're applying for like the actual application itself, just like is it like kind of like applying like to undergrads where like there's like a common applicant, or does each school have like its own like portal?
Each school has its own
Yeah.
portal. It's a bit of
Yeah.
a mess.
It's kind of awful, like some schools will make you put in every course you've taken with the
Yeah.
textbooks, and they'll make you do it again for each school, you can't even upload the same. Yeah, I would recommend looking through all the applications in advance, because when I was applying at the last minute, I noticed like I'm deep into one of the applications, some new statement I had to write, so they're all very different.
I made like a spreadsheet with like all the schools and the deadlines and the requirements before I even like started all the forms, because it was just, they vary quite differently depending on formatting and stuff, so.
Are there like always interviews for these graduate school applications?
I didn't get asked to have interviewed, to be
Oh.
interviewed anywhere
Oh,
in the US.
Stony Brook, at least Stony Brook has a sort of open day for people, but usually I think it's for people once they've been accepted.
that's the
So it's
answer.
really you going to us to interview us,
oh.
the other way around, the other way around. So.
Also, another question. So, like, are there ever going to be questions that ask one to explain about the importance of culture in our everyday lives if you're applying at the math major?
Culture?
Yes, the importance of culture on our everyday lives.
I don't mind so.
It's like, you know, in college applications, like
Oh.
university applications, those
Like
type
about
of.
like, yeah, not so much, like that kind of goes away.
So
Well,
it's
I know-
like mostly about basically what you're studying.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they don't really care if you're a person with hobbies.
Oh.
They care about, and
Yeah, I mean, we want you to sort of be able to sort of cope under, sort of just be able to cope mathematically, and I do encourage you to, do something other than math. And we do require sort of just basic, just sort of, like, you've got to be able to interact with people in sort of basic, like, normal way.
Okay.
Just to address the interview question, I did receive interviews, but not from the schools, from like people that I emailed as affiliates saying I want to work with you. So that is something to keep in mind, is that if you try to like apply to work with specific people, they might want to talk to you more than just Skype you or something. That plays out more or less like an interview.
Yeah, so Professor McLean, oh, you have a question?
Oh,
No, okay. So Professor McLean pointed to an important thing in applications, and that was research. So I want to ask about research from you guys. I know you did. You guys were RU.
Yeah, I did an RU in the summer of my junior year. So if anyone is at that point, I would recommend applying. It was a good experience. And then in my senior year, I also did a research project with a professor here. So definitely wrote about that in my application, and definitely a lot of professors here are willing to do projects with undergrads. So if you are thinking, if any professor seems like they're doing interesting research, you should definitely go meet with them. I also did other research. I don't know, sometimes people ask because they said they do a lot of research in other fields. Maybe they did some physics research, or I don't know, some other computer science or something. I don't know. I had some background in physics, and I did a research project in physics, and I did mention this in my application. But I don't know. I don't want to say that like you should focus too much on it because they might not care. But maybe some programs would think it's advantageous. What would you think? If people had other research background out of math, should we mention in there?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think it's quite good just to, if you've done some other sort of projects, which is sort of, I think it's worth mentioning, even though it's, it's better that it's a math project, but if it's some sort of other thing you've done, I think it's fine. There's no harm in mentioning it. I'd say that.
I didn't do any research projects really in my undergrad, like until my fourth year actually. And that was actually after I applied, so it didn't really help much. Yeah, so, but like so it worked out somehow, so it's good. You don't necessarily need to do research. It's good, definitely good to do that. You don't necessarily need to. Yeah, it's possible to get into grad school without doing research projects in undergrad.
Yeah, I had a couple of research projects. I mean, I came from a European university, so I did a master's, an integrated master's, so it was just one degree, but there was opportunity for me to do like a bachelor's research project and then a master's thesis. So like most of my personal statement or whatever was like talking about this, and I think I actually wrote about it in like quite mathematical detail. Like you can be technical. I think it's good.
So there's a certain sense in which you kind of need to know your audience. If you're applying for math programs, you want to highlight the mathematical merits of things that you've done. So if you have projects that are specifically math or like math intensive, you can highlight those more. And if you have things that are not mathy, you can, just keep them as a footnote to show that you've done things, but maybe not talk about them as extensively, because again, they might not care about that. But if you apply to do something else, there might be different aspects that you want to highlight, and it's important to keep in mind the audience that you're writing for, because you can only say different things about the same project depending on who you're talking to.
And so how much research is the research that you did as an undergrad, how much is it helping you as a graduate student? How much does it really matter in terms of, not in terms of applications, but in terms of what you're doing now?
I mean, for me, it was very, very important because my master's research basically told me that I wanted to do algebraic geometry, and is super relevant to what I'm doing now. Yeah, I mean, my master's, I published a paper, but it was it was a pointless result. It didn't mean anything. So that itself isn't useful, but I think learning all of that was very useful. Yeah, and it's relevant.
Yeah, the same thing. I think doing the research project as an undergrad, definitely helped me figure out what my interests were and that I wanted to go to graduate school. So that was very helpful. The content is also helpful, but maybe not. It's not definitely not help. Yeah, it's not. The main goal is not that you should achieve all your mathematical success as an undergrad.
So just to kind of go in the opposite direction from Lisa, you can sometimes do stuff as an undergraduate and realize that you don't like it. So I had done some undergraduate research in semiconductor physics and went pretty well. We had results, but made me realize I never want to do semiconductor physics again. And I think just kind of knowing that is valuable because it helps you decide what you want to do. Do I want to go into algebra? Do I want to go into analysis? Even if you know you don't want to do something, it helps you make decisions.
I have experience also actually. Last year, I did a research thing in analysis, and yeah.
Okay. And so, okay, go ahead.
Just a question. Well, since you all are saying that basically this helps the most in shaping your direction of research, right? So it helps you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do in graduate school, right? So with that in mind, how much does merit play into this? Say you publish a paper, does that how do the colleges look at the graduate school admissions? How would they look at it? Would they care about the paper more or your grades?
Well, for me, it's sort of both. Quite often with the grades are usually really good. The ones we accept, people accept. Everyone has great grades, and then you have to sort of think, how do you distinguish between all these people with great grades?
But like, say, what if someone like does so much research and doesn't care about grades that they have a very bad grade but publishes like 10 papers before they?
Well, it depends on what the 10 papers are, right? So, I mean, if somebody has bad grade, I would worry if somebody did that. You know, if someone had a spectacular paper but still failed in some basic course, like, I don't know, real analysis or something, that would kind of worry me a bit. I don't know.
Oh, no, I mean like not in real analysis, but say if they like do very poorly in like English or like humanities course.
Well, I think the problem is some of these things I think are requirements that are sort of, they're not, I don't know if they might even be beyond the control of the, like there's a sort of minimum threshold.
Oh.
And that might be set by the university rather than the department. So it might be, there may be exceptions could be made, but I'm not sure. But I've never heard of anything like this. So, you know, you can make exceptions. I mean, I've heard people, you know, I knew someone in there, you know, do something really spectacular, and then, you know, I suppose whatever they do after that, it's okay. But that's very rare, like extremely rare, that kind of thing. I do know, yeah, I also know someone who got into graduate school and they got into graduate school, I think in Princeton, it's a very good place, and they didn't even pass their degree. So they have no degree and they got into Princeton. Someone about my age. I think Princeton took a risk, but this person did extremely well, and like he's professor now in some really good university. So, but they took it. I feel like Princeton still gambled when they did that because this was an extremely sort of slightly eccentric person, I think. But these are very exceptional cases, and you know, most normal people like myself and other people just do. You know, we get good grades in the courses, we do projects, we try and do as best we can, and you know, that's all we can do. Yes.
Just out of curiosity, what is this threshold?
I can't remember all the numbers, but there's like we have a threshold for a minimum threshold for some of the GRE scores, and there's some English language thing. Maybe it's part of the GRE. I can't remember. There's some sort of English language thing.
There's like there's like the top.
Yeah, I think you know on the Stony Brook website it says you have to get a certain score maybe, and.
But I don't think Stony Brook actually requires the math subject GRE.
Oh.
It requires the general, but
Yeah.
it doesn't. I never sent my math general, my math subject here because it was terrible. So if schools didn't specifically require it, I didn't send it. And the ones which didn't require it, I got accepted. So take from that what you will.
So my no, not those just like the big tests, right? No big tests. What about the classes? Like
Which sort of classes?
like high level math classes. I'm just like, you expect A's and everything?
Well, I suppose it depends on the it depends on the level of the graduate program. I can only speak for the Stony Brook one.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for good grades, like A's or maybe A minuses, and I think sometimes B's for some of the reasonably high level courses. I mean, I'm trying to remember what sort of courses I'm thinking of, but you know, there's the sort of the highest level undergraduate courses here, definitely. So things like 324 and those kind of, at least for pure math. Maybe the really advanced graduate courses, you could have more leeway, I suppose. So, you know, there's all these graduate core courses if you have permission from a graduate director to do them. and I still think you should try and get a good grade in them. I personally think I personally think you have to get good grades in those things, really. At least in the ones that are the relevant subjects that you're sort of thinking of pursuing.
Yeah, the thing is with the grad courses, Professor Grishowski only gives you permission to take them if you get A's and everything anyway.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So that, and,
What do you think?
Oh, my question is kind of different. Like, so someone, I know like you have to take a comprehensive exam and then oral exam. So what are these things? What is
Oh, you in grad school?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I get started because at Columbia we don't have the first one of those.
Okay.
We don't, so I guess that, yeah, it wouldn't be helpful for that. So some schools have like written exams. I know Stony Brook has,
Yeah, Stony
For
Brook
the
has
first year.
one written, so it's just the single exam. Some schools have it split by subject into many different exams.
yeah, and some schools don't have the written exam at all.
Right.
And then at Columbia there are oral exams, so you have to choose your topic, like you have to choose a minor and major topic, and you study for that topic. I think your advisor gives you materials to prepare for that.
How long?
But yeah, so
How long do you study for?
at Columbia, so this is definitely specific to each school. So at Columbia, you take the oral exams your second year. So you could
At
use
the end of your second?
anytime during the second year.
So at CUNY we have the quals and we have orals. So the way the quals work is that there are 6 of them, but you only pass 3 of them in order to go on to the next stage. And the subjects are analysis, field analysis, complex analysis, logic, topology, algebra, and something else. What else? Oh, differential geometry, right? Okay. So those are 6 subjects. And so after you do that, you find an advisor, and then I think at the end of your 3rd year usually, you do an oral exam. The oral exam is very different from what you said. So what you do is you find like a big paper that's relevant to you. So for example, my friend, he's doing it on Sarah's data paper, right? So you go through the paper like very thoroughly, and then your advisor, and I think some other people also, probably not many people, maybe 3 people, kind of go through on that paper, right? Like all the little details. So that's how they do that at CUNY.
Can you repeat that?
Oh, so yeah, so you write a big paper,
Yeah.
right? Like you and your advisor choose a big paper that's relevant in your field that you're interested in, and you go through like all the little details of it, and like it usually takes a couple months to review that, and then like your advisor and a couple other people grilling on that paper.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's your oral exam.
So here we start with the comprehensive exam. It's a 2-day exam, which covers questions in topology, geometry, algebra, real analysis, complex analysis. But you get several goes to take it. You can take it when you arrive, and then you can take it like maybe 4 times, I think.
there's no penalty for failing it. So
Yeah.
if you get 0,
It's fine.
no one's going to punish you for it, so you should just take it on the first day.
So you generally have to pass it by, after you've been here for like a year and a half. In some circumstances, you get 2 years. And then once you're done with that, then you start wanting to pick an advisor or a major topic. So you generally try and talk to and find an advisor who will then be your like major topic for the orals. And then you also have to do a minor topic, but that kind of depends on who's your advisor. Sometimes your advisor will be like, you have to do this topic with this person. Sometimes they're like, oh, you can do whatever you want, or sometimes they give you some help. And then you study for this oral exam for about a year, maybe under a year.
So is this oral exam, like, can you describe?
Yeah, so then it's like 3 people, so it's not really on a paper, normally, well, sometimes it can be on a paper. Normally your major advisor gives you like a book to read. So for me, I got like a specific book, complex algebraic surfaces, and then that whole thing was my major topic. And then your minor topic is going to be like maybe a third of the size of your major. And yeah, again, it's some chapters from a book or something. And then you get grilled on it for an hour and a half in front of 3 people. Yeah.
Oh, so I did a timeline for the quals. So you have for each qual you have 2 chances to do it, and well, you also have a free shot coming in like before your first semester starts, right? So you're able to take whatever you want then, and that's a free shot. But then after that, you have 2 tries for each qual, and then you need to pass 3 or 4 at the end of your second year, or else you're just kicked out. So it's pretty, yeah. And actually, it happens surprisingly often. Like, yeah, so CUNY, I think, loses maybe 3 people, like, from the incoming year, or like around. Yeah, it's very surprising.
We didn't lose many people. I don't think we lose people here. Too many people here. I don't know.
Very, yeah,
I only know one.
yeah, maybe, yeah, I don't know the rate, but it's quite low.
I think it's low for yeah. Most people pass the conference.
And so going back to applications, like how do you figure out which schools you have to apply to or you want to apply to, and like how do you choose a rank of schools?
How many?
And how many?
I don't know who wants to start.
I'll start.
Sorry.
So like, as for how many, it's just how many you can afford. That's really the answer. And
Most
yeah,
European
it's
ones are
possible.
free. So
Yeah, exactly.
which one? Most European schools are free, so if you want to apply.
Okay. Yeah, and so the way I did it was I asked, so I was interested in things. I was interested in like 2 very different subjects. Like I was interested in model theory. I was interested in algebraic geometry going in. So like unfortunately, not a lot of places do both of those, right? So I kind of asked like people. I asked Professor Zinger here, right, for algebraic geometry like places to apply, and I looked at a lot of those, and I've asked a lot of professors at CUNY actually for a lot of places to apply, and I kind of cross-reference those lists and try to find. There's actually not so many places which do both. Actually, CUNY is one of the few that do like I think there's 2 people there who do both model theory and algebraic geometry. So it's one of very few schools that do that. Yeah, and so that was my process. But yeah, mostly you just ask professors for recommendations and for what places to apply, and you Google them, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so definitely what Moshe said, I asked a lot of professors and I got very different advice from, some professors told me to apply to 10 schools. That seemed to be the standard number. Some professors said to apply to a lot more, but of course, yeah, there's a cost to applying. So just a side note, you're able to get, there's some schools they get fee waivers. Some of them are hard to get, but there's one that's called like the Big Ten Academic Alliance, and I think that one's pretty easy to get, and it's for a bunch of schools, like Rutgers,
And
Ohio State, a bunch of like the big schools, and yeah, so definitely ask professors and try to take each one with a grain of salt. But if a bunch of them say similar things, then definitely take that seriously. And I applied to, in the end, 14 schools. I don't know if this is helpful, but I think it was a little bit too much because it was a lot of work. But if I had to do it again, I don't know which ones I would take out.
So it's worth saying, don't apply to somewhere you don't want to live, because, there's so many good schools, you have to cut them down somehow. So one of the major ways I did was, do I want to live there? Also, I don't know, sometimes it's good to speak to a lot of people. Like there's some rumors about certain schools who take in a lot of incoming and then have a really hard qualification exam so that they have high dropout, but they want cheap TAs basically for the first year. So that's something you should pay attention to, these kind of rumors. Or there's some schools which are really known for having better gender equality with their grad students, so if that's something that's important to you, that's also something to look at. So you can find all of these things. In the end, I think I applied to 7 US schools. I applied to a lot in Europe, but I also pulled out half of the applications because the application process, if you want to apply to Europe, is a lot later and kind of rolling, whereas here it's the strict deadline. So.
I'm going to say it again. Depends on the affiliate was a big thing for me. Is who do do I want to work with. There were a few schools that I was going to apply to, and then the affiliates that I like had messaged said, I don't want to work with you, or just like ghosted me, and then I ended up not applying to them. There's others where I went through with it anyways, and then maybe got accepted, maybe got rejected, or just decided I didn't want to go there anymore. But the big thing was always like, who do I want to work with, and like, what are they doing? Because it's kind of hard to contact a new professor and tell them what you want to do if it's drastically different from what they do on a daily basis. One of the reasons I stuck with my current advisor, because he advised my undergraduate thesis and he gave me a lot of freedom with the kinds of things I wanted to incorporate into my study. Meanwhile, I had met with a Japanese professor, and he was seriously interested in having me come. And one of the things that eventually made me say, no, I don't want to work with this guy is, he said, I need to be doing convex analysis like 10 hours a week to be able to be ready to work with him. Because this was just like his bread and butter, that's what he does. If I'm not down with that, get out kind of thing. So I think kind of knowing that is important too when it comes to looking at like who you want to work with. Like what can you get away with?
So another kind of related question is that, should you apply, like, should we, the Stony Brook undergrads, apply to Stony Brook for grad school, or should we try to go somewhere different?
I hear conflicting things about this.
Yes.
Sometimes people say you shouldn't go because it doesn't, like, you shouldn't stay in the same place because it kind of shows that you can't work with new people as often, or like deal with like changing, but I don't know how true this is. Like, I know people who have stayed in the same place for PhDs. They seem fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure how important it is from undergraduate to graduate. It's more important if you end up wanting to go into academia and do postdocs.
Right.
Then you should do postdocs elsewhere, but you don't have to worry about it now. Like that's my.
Also, I think Stony Brook's a really good school, so especially if you're like interested in geometry, algebraic geometry, stuff like that, like you should apply here. It's a good school.
I've certainly heard a lot of, it's good if you can, but don't like stress if you don't.
Applying to Stony Brook, or we think that?
Like doing 2 degrees at the same institution. It seems to be a bit of a myth that it is like detrimental to what you're doing.
I could say for myself, I did apply to Stony Brook, but I asked some professors here if they thought it was even worth doing. Some of them said yes. So, I mean, you're here, so if you're thinking of applying here, you could just ask your professor if they think it's worth doing.
Yeah.
And what is the timeline for applying to grad school? Like when should you start, apart from GRE? Like you have to prepare for GRE months before or something like that?
I can't remember what the deadlines are. I have a feeling I did all of mine before Christmas.
Some graduate school deadlines are like December 2nd,
Yeah.
so that's 2 days.
It's too late for
Right.
grad.
Yeah, so it's like end of November.
Oh, Columbia's is next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
A lot of them are the 15th.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They're very early, because I came from Scotland, so all the places I was looking in the UK are like way later. So I was like, I really had to get my, like, I don't know, I was in a bit of a rush to apply to America.
So like when would you get started for like your application? Like, when did you start thinking about applications and?
So I said before that I applied for the NSF fellowship, and you have to apply to that, I think, in November. If anyone doesn't know, it's only open to U.S. citizens, but it's a fellowship from the National Science Foundation, and if you go to graduate school, you could get funded through them. So it maybe absolves you of some teaching duties that the university would require. But if you apply for that, it's also a really good like preparation for applying to grad school, because a lot of the personal statements are similar. So it makes you really revise your statement in advance. So I did that in November, and then when did I actually start writing my statement for graduate school? Probably, I guess, after November, but I already had a lot of other materials that I was drawing upon. So definitely if you want to start earlier, then that's good. And then, yeah, they're mainly due in December and January. And then it's good if you apply, if you're lucky, some of them will be due later, so you have some time in between. And they're not all due on the same day.
Do you apply junior year or senior year?
Oh, you apply in your senior year, so you apply for if you want to go the next year, right? So if you apply for this December, you'd be applying to start graduate school in September. But I do think that there are some schools where you could get accepted and then postpone. Like I think some people do they do these programs in like, I don't know, is it Oxford or Cambridge? So they get accepted to some.
Oh yeah, and then go and do part 3 or something.
Yeah. So then even if they get accepted to graduate school, they somehow ask to like go a year later. But that's a special case if you get in, yeah. But usually you're applying in December or January for the next September.
I was really rushed with my process actually. Like I think I was like sort of thinking of taking a year off like in between, and so like I didn't really like seriously get down to applying until I had to like take the MGRE, and then like I was like, yeah, I'm gonna apply this year, right? And then I think I actually wrote one of the letters like very close to the deadline. Oh, I'm sorry, all my statements. I wrote like, and that was really bad. Like I think it was even like right before deadline, and I think it was like during finals week or something. And yeah, so that was not a good experience. So yeah, please, yeah, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't push it off until you have to write it during finals week. It's not fun.
Do you remember when we should tell them, the GRE, I think, what?
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's one in April every year, and then there's one in, I think it's October and November. So yeah, so the latest you could take it is November to go to, so if you want to apply in December, you have to take it before. September, November, thanks.
But you really should take it like twice, because you're definitely gonna go into think you're gonna be really low, and then you're gonna get like a 22% off or something. Like that happens. I feel like that happens really often.
And a lot of people, many people, I took it more than once, and I think, yeah, lots of people I spoke to just took it more than once.
Yeah.
So it's very common, so I think it's less stressful if you don't wait till the last November, or the October one, right before you apply.
I definitely waited till the last time, and it was very stressful.
Yeah.
Basically, I didn't realize that it was a thing. So, because, so I took the very last one and did terribly, but whatever. You still get in. So it's not the end of the world if you do terribly.
Yeah, but you don't want to be so stressed if you could help it.
Yeah. Try and be prepared.
Oh, and the regular, so you have to take the subject GRE, the math subject GRE, and then you have to take the regular GRE. That's offered every month, so that one.
Like, that one's kind of fun.
It was offered like every day.
Or every day.
Yeah.
It's offered all the time, so you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that one,
Yeah.
about finding a time.
Just one more thing on deadlines is that you should know the deadlines in advance, just so like if you decide to do things last minute, you know what you're getting into. But even more important than you rushing to get your essays and everything in is getting your like letters of reference in. So like if you have like professors writing for you, you need to know like if they're going out to like conferences and stuff like that, because I can't tell you how many times I've needed like a letter of rec for like the GRFP or for grad schools or for different like fellowships, and somebody is out of town conveniently the week before, and you need to find some way to like make up the time with them, kind of harass them for it. And I found like the only way that ever works is if you kind of told them about it in advance. So if you're like applying for the GRFP and your guy is out on for a conference like the week before, if you told them a month in advance, then they don't really have a good excuse for why they haven't come in, and they'll feel much more compassionate towards you than if they're hearing about it for the first time 2 days before they leave. So making sure that your letters of recommendation know about that in advance will only work in your favor.
Yeah, some of the busier professors will have some sort of policy, like, you've got to tell me 1 month in advance, otherwise I won't write the letter.
So, like, Do you have any like general tips for like balancing applications, studying for GREs and school? Or just like, is it just the usual like, you're gonna die?
I mean, I didn't study for the GRE, which was a mistake. So, you probably should study for the GRE. Calculus, tricks.
And so one last question is that what do you like about grad school and what you don't like about grad school now that you're experiencing it?
Well, let's start from that side, what you said.
Sure.
Here's different with that.
Yeah, what did you like about it?
Sorry.
I like kind of the flexibility to it. So, in a certain sense with PhD, if you're working with a good advisor, you have the flexibility to kind of steer the ship yourself a little bit. So you're working with your advisor, but you say, look, I really want to go in this direction, can you help me do that? And they can always find ways to give you like projects or something that's like relevant to your interest, right? So, like, my guy, I applied to work with him because I thought that I wanted to do just some kind of like Monte Carlo thing, some kind of stochastic randomness thing. And then the moment that I started reading papers on it, I started seeing like cohomology theories pop up. And then I said, you know, please let me go chase after this. And if you have a good professor, they're very like good about that, letting you find ways to integrate your interests into it, especially when they're relevant to things that could be good research topics. If you have a good professor, they'll say, wow, this person's actually quite passionate about what they're doing. Let me like help them grow that and make it into something that's like good.
I guess I really like what I'm studying. I'm really enjoying this. But for me, I had a kind of rough time in my first year because I had to, because I came from my master's, I was already doing like quite specific algebraic geometry, and then I came here and I had to suddenly do real analysis again and complex analysis. So for me, this first year was kind of terrible because of this. But then now I'm back to what I came here to do, so that's very good. Also, I guess the department is really nice. Like, everyone's very friendly, you can talk to lots of people. Yeah. Do I have to say what I don't like as well? Was that part of the question?
Yeah, that was part of the question.
What do I not like? Well, I mean, I wish there was more of a gender balance. That's one thing I should have probably taken into account more when applying. And I also thought we were a lot closer to the city. I think that I think if you ask any international student, they might say the same thing.
This is true.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for something that's good, I actually am very close to the city because yeah, CUNY is right in Midtown Manhattan. So that's nice. Okay, and yeah, so I actually was also kind of expecting, like, it was the same sort of thing where I was kind of expecting it to be like much more research oriented in the first year, but like it's just coursework, right? Right, yeah. So that's that was some of that experience. Actually, CUNY is interesting because it's very not focused in terms of like kind of have to make your own way. But like you don't really have like really any guidelines actually. You have to find your own advisor, and then you have to like make sure that you're keeping yourself on track because a lot of advisors are just like very focused on their own stuff and are kind of hands off, right? So like it's interesting. It's just very it's very unfocused in that way. You have to like push yourself. Right, like if you want, if you're interested in something, you have to like pursue it yourself. I actually kind of like that. Except for the coursework, there isn't really much like restrictions, which is nice. Something that's interesting is actually also you actually have to teach instead of TA, right? So you have to teach like just an entire class, and you're the instructor instead of the TA, right? Because you have to teach at a CUNY college, and it's actually kind of fun. I enjoy teaching, so that's good. And yeah, like for things I don't like, or yeah, like really the on the gender balance is pretty bad, but like, yeah, like I remember there was a Thanksgiving party and there was like 20 men and like 3 women. Yeah, and then like 2 of them were like some of the students' girlfriends or something. Yeah, so that was pretty bad.
So something that I like is that when you're in grad school and like undergrad, your day is more structured. I feel like, at least for me, I come in and I have an office and a desk and I sit down and work. So I feel more responsible than as an undergrad, where you kind of, I don't know, you go back to your dorm or the library and then you don't really have a schedule. Something I don't like, I guess, it's a little bit like a bubble, like the math department, and mostly I'm talking to other people in the math department. I think it'd be nice to meet other people. Yeah, that's a minor.
Yeah, I haven't met a single person outside of the math department at CUNY yet. Like a single person.
It's kind of hard, I feel like, for different graduate departments to like meet each other for some reason. Yeah. It's like isolated bubbles.
Yeah.
There may be a comment about the sort of, when you start out, you're doing just sort of bread and butter mathematics or something. There's one thing that's kind of nice, which is early on in your PhD, before you start a project, you kind of do have an opportunity to just take courses and just learn random things for fun. And I think that's quite good. It's quite good to just sit in on random courses that maybe you haven't registered for, which might sound interesting, just for fun and broadening your horizons. And once you start focusing on your PhD, then that's your main focus, and that kind of goes to the side of it, I think.
For each one of you, what are your plans after you are done with graduate school?
I don't know. Yeah, is that fair? I mean, I see also people do many different things, and many people stay in academia, but also in my program, there's also like people doing probability and they go into industry or like math, finance, and so I don't know. But you could ask me, I guess, in a few years.
So I continuously want to do a postdoc like outside the country. Like that's like kind of my dream for where I want to be in however many years, 6 years, 5 years, whatever.
As of right now, I would like to stay in academia, but that could change in the, yeah.
Given the fact that I'm in like applied math, there is a certain sense of I could do either. It depends where I'm at in, I guess, 5 years, whether or not I want to keep with research positions, because at least for me, it depends on like the kind of work that I'm doing. At the moment, the stuff I do for a PhD seems significantly more interesting than something I could be doing for Google. Like the problems are here, more entertaining.
Have any of you have any experience with math contests? Because I think a bunch of us here are taking the fun one this Saturday.
Oh, good luck.
No experience.
I took the Putnam once, and then every other year I thought I was going to take it, but either not stay or didn't. I think it's a good thing to do, but it's not necessary at all. You don't need it at all. It's for your own.
I think I took a math contest once and effectively got a negative score. I wouldn't worry. A lot of people I know are bad at math contests, so if you do badly in Putnam, I can't do the Putnam now, so I wouldn't worry. If you do really well in it, great. People like that.
How well is really well?
I don't know. Some people say if you get a non-zero score, it's good.
Yeah.
So you can advertise that. Yeah.
I was like top 500, I think, in my 3rd year, but that was like, and then I didn't do it my 4th year, because I think actually I took the regular GRE that day instead, because I pushed it off, and it was and my guy realized the day I scheduled the GRE for was for the same day as the Putnam, and then
Just this challenge. The theory is just this challenge.
But,
But it's just very different.
Yeah.
Very different style.
Yeah, it's the same questions, like, it's just like stretched out over.
Alright, let's thank our panelists.